And my name's Jim Thrift. I go at the 8 o'clock and sit in the back row with Chuck and Betty for about 6 years. Today, we're not going to actually go through what a traditional chili recipe is. There are lots of recipes, all on the internet and all kinds of places. There are chili clubs. About half the states have chili cook-offs. So I'm not going to go through a recipe, but I am going to go through, if you want to have great chili, what are some of the insights that is good to know? First of all, you may want to know, probably not, where did chili come from? Well, it was first recorded in the early 1800s in Mexico, but it became popular in the U.S. Southwest in about 1850, before the Civil War. And primarily it was considered a poor person's food because you put in chopped meat and vegetables, whatever you had, and you ended up with chili. Today's chili, you can get it in a variety of forms. But the important thing is to think about if you're going to make great chili versus good chili. If you're going to make great chili, don't be in a hurry. If you're in a hurry for chili, get a nice can of chili like this and open that up, and that's what your chili dinner will be. My comments are going to be how to make great chili. And I have some experience in making just good chili for several years. I entered the DC chili cook-off for 3 years, making chili which I thought was good, following recipes that were tried and proven, couldn't get honorable mention, and other people's chili was better. Finally checked with a friend and enters the chili cook-off in Texas every year, which is the big one. Literally thousands of people come on site to enter their chili. And he told me that I was doing just about everything wrong, which I've already been married and I pretty much knew that already. So in any case, so I decided that I'd listen to him, and I thought you just took all the ingredients that are on the recipes and you put them in your crock pot, and they cook there and you make chili. Nothing could be further from the truth. Virtually all of the ingredients, the major ingredients that you put into your chili, are not cooked in the crock pot. They are in fact barbecued individually. Onions, peppers, I barbecue these, but before I barbecue them, they look kind of like that. You'll notice I use 1 jalapeno, and we'll get into why I use 1 jalapeno rather than more, because if you want to make the chili so the average person can eat it, stay with 1 jalapeno. 2 jalapenos get it down to about a third of your audience can't eat it. So the first thing you do is I start with usually 3 or 4 peppers. Now, there are no real rules on which peppers. You probably all have copies of the Chili Nation, which is, I have several chili cookbooks. This is one of them. The Chili Nation is kind of interesting because it has a recipe for making chili, the most popular one in every state in the United States. And that gives you ideas on making chili. The thing is that great chili is made over a period of time. So if you decide you want to have great chili, you start today and serve it on Memorial Day with something else. Because you can't rush chili. If you do, you end up with okay chili or just good. Now, with that, we're going to get into cutting everything up and adding it. But what I do to start with is I use a chili mix. This one is Carol Shelby's chili mix. You can use Jardine's is a good one. I don't like McCormick. But this one is pretty good, except don't follow the recipe. The recipe in the pack says you can make this chili in 30 minutes. That's probably correct, but it'll be not very good. The thing is that they take all the measurements out of the guesswork. Now, if you want to make your own, again, back to various chili mixes, you know, they have chili powder in here, a lot of paprika, which is actually a pepper, and a variety of other things. Then they have a little bag called mesa flour. Mesa flour is actually corn flour. This is to thicken up watery chili. Chili should not be watery. It should be thick. Then there's a little bitty package of cayenne pepper. Be real careful with this. This is the same package from a previous chili mix I made. Little bitty stuff in here. I used about 1/4 of this package for my entire crock pot. And it becomes medium spicy. And with chili, it is far easier to add the spice to bring it up to spicy or medium spicy than trying to figure out how you get too spicy chili down to where you can eat it. So you want to be a little careful with that. Now, next thing, we're going to start cutting up the vegetables. This is the hands-on part. You'll notice that these onions look a little brown or whatever. The chilies look a little brown. The onions, I cut them in about, about 3/4 to an inch, and barbecue slowly. The onions might burn a little on the outside, just like the chilies, but that's not a problem. They should kind of burn, and I'll show you what we do with the chilies. And then we're just going to cut it up here, not real big. I could have had it cut up before, but I thought that it might actually kind of explain how you do things if I cut it up in front of you. This cooking thing separately on the barbecue is actually, it changes the whole thing. Now, some people I know that are chili aficionados actually season the stuff they barbecue. I don't. I just cook it the way it is and season later. Now you notice there's some kind of burn spots on the chili. We're going to get rid of that. That's actually the skin that got burned. No big deal. We're going to cut this up. It's going to take me a few minutes to do this, so I'll kind of talk through it. There are, again, no real rules on chili, but chili is made with meat and chilies. Now, if you want to add things like mushrooms and so forth, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You do not make chili out of fish. I don't know what that is. That must be fish stew. But you don't make chili out of fish. People do. I've seen it, but it's not chili. Also, there is no such thing as a vegetarian chili. Now, vegans and vegetarians will say there is. I say that's a vegetable stew. That is not chili. Chili has to have meat and peppers. And if you don't have meat and peppers, it's not chili. Okay. I have 2 crock pots. This is my biggest one. And I use them for different things. This is a nice green pepper, more onions, carbonels. Oops, I'll get a little of that off of there. The takeaways on some of this is you can't rush and whip up a chili in 30 minutes. And that's what it says on the box. You can make it in 30 minutes. Well, that's a misprint. Good chili takes time. The other thing that's important with chili is the heating and cooling process. And that sounds really trite, but you've got to bring it up to a fairly high temperature. Let it, then once it's up high, drop it to the low on the crock pot and let it simmer. And then at night, put it in the refrigerator and do this at least 2 nights. And it sounds like, what does that do? That allows the chili flavors to blend. If you're making quality chili, the judges should not be able to tell exactly what's in it because you've allowed it to blend. And that's important. Also, your family will like it better if you spend the time on it. And even though it takes a lot of time, make a big batch. We'll get to the meat in a few minutes, but I probably got 2 pounds of vegetables I started with here. And I use red Bermuda onions. Some people use white onions. I don't think they give the flavor. Now, again, there's no rules on that. If you got white onions around and you don't have red onions, then go with the white onion and see what your family says. I mean, you know, if you're trying to please the family, you know, like if they clean their room or something. So anyway, we got a lot of vegetables. And then we got these little bitty guys. See these little bitty green things? These are jalapenos. Americans love jalapenos. Be careful with jalapenos. As soon as I get done cutting these things up, I'm washing my fingers. These things, you're probably familiar with the Scoville rating for chilies. I'll show you that in 1 minute. I have another cookbook here I'm sure you're all very familiar with. It's Biker Billy's Cooking with Fire. Biker Billy had a television show back in the 80s for several years. And anyway, he's an ex-Hells Angels, and the whole book is on things that, you know, are easy to transport. I like it because I have a boat, and a lot of the recipes work really well on a boat as well as they do working on a motorcycle trip. But the thing that's in here that's important to this is there's a whole thing, it's hard to read, dedicated on the Scoville ratings for chilies. The jalapenos are considered medium to hot. Cayennes, which is the little bitty stuff here, is considered hot, really hot. And then habaneros are at the top. Don't play with habaneros. A half a habanero with the seeds left in it will make an entire crock pot really hot. If people want hot chili, put hot sauce out, they can add it later. Because if you make it hot enough for some of the crazy people, nobody else can eat it. So, small points, but just because there's a bag of cayenne pepper in the box, that doesn't mean you're supposed to use it. The other thing that used to be in the box, which is no longer in there, because I've been using this recipe for 25 years, that used to be in there, they had a little package of salt. Salt is kind of out of favor with a lot of people. You got to be careful, and I'm careful when I cook with salt because some people just don't like it. So I'm very careful, and I also use a semi-soluble salt, sea salt. It's pretty common. I use it also in my bread making and a few other things. But sea salt works really good. But I'll tell you, I'm cautious adding too much of that. You can always add that kind of stuff later because we're going to cook this for 3 days. We're going to cook it today, tomorrow, most of Monday, and then we're going to have it on Monday night with something. I haven't figured that out yet. So as tomorrow, I'm also not going to worry about if the chili is too thick or too thin. Doesn't make any difference. We'll worry about that tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon. So we have to get done. We have a lot of chilies here to cook up, or to cut up, I should say. And this takes a while. Some of the other tricks with chili that I have followed recipes and then I have deviated from them. And what I do after I add the package, let's say the mix comes out, and we're going to add this in a few minutes. The mix comes out and it just doesn't have enough chili flavor to it. Something that I use in making Mexican food is taco seasoning. Read the side of a powdered chili and you'll find that it's pretty much what's in taco seasoning. It's just a substitution. It depends, how much stuff you want to have around your house, So that works pretty good if you need a little more chili powder. And it also works when I make my enchiladas, and I do quite a bit of Mexican cooking also, but we don't have time on this show. And besides, I was only paid to do the chili. At least I believe I'm getting paid, but I'll have to talk to Kim about that later. But actually, I'm planning, if this show goes good, to get a spot using this video as my intro to get a spot on the food channel. Now, chili cooked like this is actually, it's better than most of the chilies you're going to be able to get in restaurants. Most of you have probably heard of Ben's Chili Bowls, DC, 23rd and U. Anyway, they have good chili. I don't think it's great because they make it right there and they serve it that day. It's good, but it's not great. Next thing we're going to play with is the meat. This is hamburger. And you know what? It doesn't really make any difference if it's 80-20, 85-15, fat, all that, because you're going to barbecue it and burn off all the fat anyway. So who cares? This is ground pork. This is sausage, country sausage that I got at Nick's of Calvert down there in Prince Fred. There's another Nick's somewhere, but anyway, that Nick's of Calvert. And if you got three things is good. Actually, what makes it kind of easy if you forget, those of you that cook, you might have been in a grocery store and they have what's called a meatloaf mix. That works fine. I don't think it comes out with all the recipes I've ever seen, at least printed, all call for just ground beef. And most of the time, they say it's chuck steak and you cube it. Well, okay, you could do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think adding 3 different meats is a lot better. But, who knows? Everybody's whatever. Now, the trick with the meat is you want to almost or virtually overcook it. And the reason is, you see these pieces of hamburger? There's no red on this. This is not a medium rare hamburger. You are not cooking a hamburger sandwich. You are making chili. There is a reason you want to cook this medium well, in that range. You don't want to burn it, but you want to cook it a lot. And the logic is the meat has fat. You want to get the fat out of the meat. The reason we do that is the meat will absorb the flavors. If the meat is fatty, oil and water, fat and flavor, you probably heard all this stuff. Anyway, if the meat is fatty and not cooked enough, you'll never get the flavor in the chili total that you want. Now, I go deer hunting too, and the years that the deer stand still long enough, I bring home some venison. Otherwise, just storage. But if you have venison or other kinds of meat, that all works. That all works. Again, there's no real rules. The only rules is chili is meat and chilies. Other than that, there ain't much rule. Now the bean thing, I don't put beans in my chili, and traditional beans has no huevos in the chili, but that's up to you. If you decide you want to add beans, add them a half hour, but not longer, before you serve the chili. Now there's a reason for that. I'm just remembering it. No, I don't. The reason is that you don't, if you cook the beans too long, like a day or something, guess what happens to beans? They mush. So if you're going to put beans in the chili, put them in not longer than a half hour before. Now, there's been some discussion, not with me, but I have read, people with what kind of beans? Red kidney. That's what most people use. Pinks, I don't know. If you want to use pinks, go ahead. Small whites, I wouldn't do it. So, we've got a whole lot here to cut up. This is the pork. It was shredded. I got it just there in the grocery store. I had to actually ask the guy if they had ground pork, because I knew they did. I didn't know what it was. And they did. They didn't have any toilet paper in the store, but they had pork. So that was good.
Is it permissible to ask a question?
It's okay with me.
Okay. You said it's ground pork. Have you grilled it?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
because it almost looks like it's a pork roast or something.
Well, you can see where the grilled burn parts are on the side there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
This thing was 50% thicker. Now it's, oh yeah, everything got cooked on the barbecue yesterday. I spent a couple hours getting ready for this show because this is my kickoff to get my own television show. So I don't know. Anyway, yes, the pork, the sausage, the hamburger, all cooked on the barbecue. And so was the peppers. They're all cooked. Ironically enough, I used to cook the stuff in a frying pan and then put it in the pot, and that didn't work. So, but now, do you need pork in it? No. I mean, most of the recipes say we're doing about 3.5 pounds total of meat. That's a little heavy, but I'm making a big batch because there's a lot of trouble. So, you know, if you're going to do it, you might as well have a bunch of it left over. And chili, frozen chili comes out really great. I mean, nothing wrong with frozen chili. And the other thing is, when you have chili around, chili was originally, when it was first invented or used, it was used as a main dish, which it can be. I would say most people these days use it as a side dish. I use chili as a side dish, but I use it, I have a big holiday party every year and at my house, and I cook everything, and I have a pot of chili going the whole time. Now you wouldn't think a holiday party and chili goes together. I guess it does because I have a big crock pot of it, and at the end of the night, there's no chili in the crock pot. So I don't know what that means, except maybe my friends just come over and are very hungry. I don't know. But anyway, so I could have done this all before, but then I decided, you know, most people like to watch other people work, so that's what I'm doing. And you'll also notice I'm not cubing. This stuff's coming out small. You want it down here, oh, 2 squares or no or less. Okay, we got
Jim, is there any particular kind of sausage that you use?
Yes. Whatever I have available. I also make my own homemade sausage, several kinds. I make Italian, German, venison, and it depends what I hit in the car during the week. But I make very traditional Italian sausage. You get the casings down there at Nick's. But anyway, when I'm going to use it for chili, when I make the batch of Italian sausage, I use different seasonings for different things. In other words, if I'm going to leave it as cased sausage for Italian, I'm heavy on fennel. If I'm using it for chili, I lighten up the fennel, use about half. In 5 pounds, 6 pounds of sausage, I'll use 4 pounds of fennel if I'm doing sausage, but if I'm doing chili, no more than 1 or 2. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Again, I can't emphasize enough, everything I'm doing here are guidelines. The reason there's no recipe on my summary is I don't have a recipe. And also, I don't make it exactly the same every time I do it. I do different things. It's just the way it works. Okay, now we're going to add some things. All right? A lot of the recipes call for, 1 pound or 14.5 ounce crushed tomato, some of them tomato paste, some of them, you name it. I don't like a whole lot of tomato in my chili. So what I use is 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. If you don't have tomato sauce can around, I'll tell you what works just as well, some spaghetti sauce. Now, we've added a lot of chilies, but I don't know why I do this, but I always do it. I put in 1 can of green chilies, already chopped and cooked. They're very mild. It goes right in the pot. Now, you'll look at the pot and it looks like, gee, that's kind of dry. Well, you're right. I always cook chili with wine. Sometimes I add it to the chili. Because of the hour, we're adding the wine today to the chili. I also picked this up in Texas, where they add beer to the chili. I used to use this, but we don't use that anymore. Now I use this. The beer gives the chili a very distinctive flavor. We also use the beer to wash everything out of the cans. Kind of like double duty, something like that. Okay. Now, we add our seasoning envelope on top. And there's a reason we do it on top. It's harder to get it off the bottom. On the top, I can mix it easier. All right? So that's that. Now, these other 2 packages, this is the flour. We'll worry about this tomorrow. This, we're not using because I have this little guy left over from before. And frankly, today, I'm not even adding that. I'm going to let it go until tomorrow and I'll taste it. The next thing, I use a couple of cubes of bouillon. And a lot of recipes call for that. I just used a little jar, the dried stuff, the cubes. This is chicken and this one's beef. I use 3 beefs, dissolved, and a half a cup of wine. Now you'll notice something here that is different from all the recipes that I've got. I add no water to my chili. Now the reason is, what does water add? What flavor does water give anything? I mean, nothing. So we'll put that in. We're going to stir this a little bit. Now it looks like it's kind of a little dry. Wait till tomorrow. It'll be soupier than you think because the vegetables, even though they're barbecued, they release stuff. All right, now, salt. I'm careful with salt. I use sea salt, like an Italian cook, you know. Anyway, all right. Now, this one's a little scary, but it's okay. You'll get used to it. Garlic.
What is it?
Garlic.
Thank you.
Crushed
Yep.
garlic.
Can't
Those-
read the label.
I just buy the small jar of it, and this is about 2 months worth of garlic. We're gonna put in a couple of spoon loads. Yeah, it kind of depends. Now again, I may add some more tomorrow, or who knows? I don't know. So we're gonna stir it up. Now, we're gonna show you a trick. You all probably know that the traditional side dish with chili is cornbread, because it is. Don't ask me, I didn't invent it. Anyway, the typical side dish with chili is cornbread, all right? So what you do, and I forgot to add the rest of the beer. I was thinking about drinking it, but this is, you know, my show debut. I should put it in the show. I only add 1 can of beer, and I add roughly a cup of wine or a little less. And believe it or not, that's all the liquid you need. Okay, now, there's a number of ways you can buy, you know, good cornbread mix. You can make it from scratch. Anyway, I get these little boxes of Jiffy, you know, they're like $1 or something, I don't know, at the store. Now what you do with it, which is really cool, and I invented this, or actually I think I did it by default, is you make the Jiffy mix, pour it on top of the chili, put lid on chili, cook it at high for about a half an hour until the top of the cornbread is kind of dry. Think of it as making a dumpling, except it's a cornbread dumpling on top of the chili. It's really cool, and then that way you spoon through the cornbread to get the chili. It's all in one gadget. You can certainly make the cornbread on the side, but traditional chili does come, the side dish is cornbread. Another one that you might want to think about that I've really gotten into in the last, probably 20 years is Chi-Chi's sweet corn cake. Okay, not everybody carries all this stuff, but this is cool. This is considered a semi-Mexican side dish dessert. I cook it in a glass bread dish, you know, my own with things. Anyway, you know, like a loaf dish. You can also cook it on top of the chili. It doesn't get quite like the cornbread. The cornbread gets not dry, but you know, comes out like cornbread. This comes out softer, but it's really, if you don't want to put it on top of the chili, just make it in the bread dish, and it's extremely good. You add a can of cream style corn and some butter, and go to town. Okay. I think the thing is that tomorrow, if this continued on, we will be able to taste the chili and decide where we go. Now, some recipes will say you can eat this in the next hour. Wrong. Let it heat up. I've got it going full blast, I think. No, I don't. Now I do. Let it heat up good and hot for most of the day. Turn it off about 6 p.m. Something. Let it cool down for a few hours, and then put it in the fridge. Now, one thing I do too, I should have told you about, you might see this little plastic thing. Okay, my daughter got me on these. What you do is you buy these plastic inserts and put it in the crock pot. And I'll tell you what, it's a good idea. Saves a lot of time. So, and a lot of cleanup. So I think we're pretty much there. I won't worry about the seasoning tomorrow. The only other thing is traditional chili, when it's served, usually, I don't put it over the top. You usually have shredded cheddar cheese and onions. Now I know a lot of recipes call for white onion. I like chopped up red onions. And you have that on the side. I don't put it over the top. And then I like this hot sauce better than the Tabasco. I think Tabasco, you shake it a couple of times and all of a sudden you got a problem. Columbo, who eats chili for lunch every day, likes to have crackers with his chili. That's okay, but again, cornbread is the best thing. So with that, I'm basically done here with all of my comments. Are there any additional questions or anything?
Yes, when you said that you were, you had grilled and then you chopped up a lot of peppers. What kind of peppers were they?
Excellent question.
It's kind of hard to see because of the glare on the photo. Bell pepper.
Well, I got one jalapeno, two red bell peppers. A lot of the recipes call for green peppers. I don't like green peppers. These are, but not banana, carbonell peppers. This one is just at the store. It just listed it as a green chili pepper. So not, you know, I stay away from habaneros, and I don't use more than one jalapeno. So I think you need at least 3 chili peppers. I don't consider the red peppers chili peppers. They're just red bell peppers. But
when you say chili peppers, you mean those little green ones you just showed us?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're about 4 inches long, and all they say in the store is green peppers. Now I do have like Biker Billy will detail all of the different peppers in just a minute. Let me see what Biker Billy says. I use Anaheim's not Chipotle habaneros. Anaheim's habaneros and poblanos. You can pretty much get them all in the store. They're pretty much semi-sweet, so they're not. I'm always nervous about getting the chili too hot.
I would be too.
I mean, I've had people tell me they buy the recipe and they put in this whole thing of cayenne pepper. Oh, that's not good.
When you do,
half your audience can't eat it.
when you do the cornbread, at what point do you do that? On the last day?
Last day, just before you want to have the chili. And the cornbread doesn't, you pretty much got to eat the cornbread if it's on top of the chili that day, because you store it in the fridge. Chili comes out fine. Cornbread comes out soggy.
Yeah. And finally,
Do what?
How do you cook the chili the second day, 6 to 8 hours? 6 to 8 hours the second day, or just 3 or 4 hours?
Turn it on the high, let it get hot, then turn it down to low and leave it on all day.
Oh, okay.
Was this your winning recipe?
Do what?
Was this your winning recipe, the recipe you used to win the contest in Washington?
Yes. This is the recipe, this is the system I used exactly to win the DC cook-off.
Okay, thank you.
What was
It-
the
it was-
last powdered?
There's people in it that have chili websites. But of course, it took me 4 years to get there, but whatever.
What was the brand of hot sauce? I couldn't read the label.
Well, it's called Cholula, Cholula. It's got a very distinctive wooden cap. Now you can use Tabasco, but I can hit a couple of drops of this and everything's fine. Tabasco, a couple of drops, you know, unless you really like that stuff.
Jim, do you automatically cook it for 3 days or do you make,
I can barely hear you.
okay, do you automatically cook it for 3 days or do you make that decision at the end of the second day?
I automatically cook it for 3 days if I'm really trying to make, you know, great. If I'm in a hurry and I want to do it tomorrow, then, you know, that's fine. But remember what Bob Steward said, chili cooked on Monday is good, but it's great on Friday.
That's true, that's true.
The trick with good chili is that people should not be able to tell what's in it. You want the cooking, cooling, and the recooking is what blends the flavors. And that's why it's so important to make sure the meat doesn't have any fat left in it, because that's, most people couldn't tell by eating this what meat is in it.
What was the last powdered ingredient that you put in? I missed it. I couldn't see it.
That was just the big envelope of
No,
meat.
it was in a round tube to your right, behind you.
This one?
No, before, after that.
Okay. This one?
Yes, what was that?
This is nothing but a giant jar of Kirkland garlic.
Say that again?
Kirkland Costco garlic.
Oh, okay.
It's nothing but minced California garlic. It's because I don't feel like peeling and squeezing garlic. It's easy.
It's not powdered, right? It's wet.
It's wet.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I can smell it. I'm putting the lid on.
How much do you cook it the third day?
How much do you cook what?
How long do you cook it the third day?
The third day, really, you're doing nothing more than warming it up. But in a crock pot, that takes a couple hours. You turn it up to high. It depends. If you're going to cook the cornbread on the top, you probably 2 hours ahead, you put it up on high. That'll get it bubbling. It has to be hot or it won't cook the cornbread. And so you get it up there bubbling and then leave it hot, put the cornbread on it, kind of like you would be doing a dumpling. You know, you kind of spread the dough. You want the dough fairly thick. I mean, you know, 1.5 inches or so. It'll rise a little. And it mainly on a crock pot this size, this box will only cover about half of it. And so then you leave the lid on for probably half an hour, come back and push down on the top of the cornbread to see if it's spongy and dry. And that takes about half an hour, 40 minutes. The second day, I'll cook us all day. Tomorrow morning or sometime, I almost said after church. Anyway, tomorrow morning, I will taste it and see what it feels like. If it needs a little more chili powder, we add this. If it needs a little more, if it's not spicy, then I'm going to add about 1/3 of this little package. This is concentrated cayenne pepper. And don't get it on your fingers or rinse them off. The other trick with the chilies is take the seeds out. That's where most of the heat is.
Wonderful.
Just a comment, Jim. Just listening to all this, I'm guilty of making really a vegetable stew. I think, and I've done chili, but the thing I run with is I like to use a variety of beans. And it's really the aesthetics of it. Having light and dark kidney beans, black beans, the other pinto beans, all kind of swimming around in there. But you're absolutely but you're right, because when the veil has lifted, we need to take a trip up to my favorite hole in the wall in Baltimore. They serve what they call Chile Atentico. It's nothing but stew meat that has been marinating forever, and the peppers, and it's in a bourbon-based sauce. And I'll tell you, it takes you an hour to eat it because you're there mopping the sweat off your brow as you work through it. But it's a great bowl of chili.
The original chili invention was a poor person's food. It's whatever meat they had or shot, and then they just put it in a pot, and they added a bunch of seasonings to make it palatable. That's where chili comes from, northern Mexico, and then the south desert. And so there's no real rules. Certainly you can add beans to chili. It's simply that chili has to have a base of meat and peppers, and then go from there. A lot of people put in mushrooms. I put in mushrooms. Some people think celery goes in chili. I think celery goes in chicken stew. But you want to put celery in, that's okay. You can do that. Well, it's whatever you got.
Hey, Jim, what was that chili mix again called?
Carol Shelby's chili mix. Carol Shelby actually is the guy that designed the Shelby GT Mustang, but he got off into cooking, and that was like 40 years ago. A store that has a Mexican Spanish section will have it. Places, Safeway, maybe some of them. Giant doesn't carry it, I can tell you that.
Jim, where did you get
You
that?
get it on the internet. It's cheaper than the grocery store. Now, on the back, it has instructions, and it says ready to eat in 30 minutes. I mean, if somebody, like I will say, most of my friends are quantity people, not quality. That's why I don't make this all the time. But, if you're just trying to fill up, go ahead, eat it in 30 minutes. Or, frankly, if you just want something fast, why go to all this trouble? You can take this can of chili. I've done this. Get a couple of cans or get the big one, doctor it up. Fry up some onions and peppers, just fry them up and put them in it. And then add some garlic and seasoning. You can make a can of chili. Okay, nothing wrong. A lot easier in 3 days. But if you're trying to get flavors to blend, that's what is the 3-day thing. That's why this presentation is not a recipe. It's a system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm inspired. I'm going to try it.
Test it on your family and see what they think.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you do it. You got to try it with other people. And when I make it, it all seems to disappear. So I guess people like it, or they're just happy to get free food. I don't know. So that's the way it is. But and this is a good deal of trouble. I mean, you got to buy everything. I was cooking on the barbecue for 2 hours yesterday, getting all this stuff ready. It is, but you can do variations. You can take the same chilies and the meat and cook them on the stove in a skillet. It doesn't come out as good, but it's okay. If you're going to do that, make sure you drain the fat off the meat. And it looks right, and I follow this recipe pretty close with the amount of liquid, I shouldn't need to add anything.
Yeah. Well, another question, by tomorrow, or what day would it be available for pickup?
Terribly bad about that. If we were doing this in the church recreation room, we could all run around and have samples on Sunday. Wouldn't be as good tomorrow, but samples are actually not available on this, but because it's too much work.
Yeah.
Is this your specialty, or is it something else you cook that is special?
I've taken cooking classes all over the world. I just finished taking a cooking class in Florence, Italy 2 years ago. I take cooking classes
Wow.
in San Francisco, New York. I've taken a number of cooking classes at the New Orleans Cooking School. I'm quite good on gumbos and pralines, candies. I make homemade sausage. I make homemade bread. But nothing really special. I believe that a really good cook is one that makes a good dinner every night. Not a specialty, just every night you have a good dinner.